Okay. Once upon a time, there was a little red-headed kid, 6 to 7 years old, and he was wandering about his parents' back garden, with an imaginary metal detector, sweeping the ground, beep, 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 until suddenly, beep, 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 and he stopped and started to dig. Now, that little redhead was me. Maybe difficult to imagine now, but it's true. Now, I believe in some weird and wonderful things. And the idea of superpowers really doesn't need to be too much of a stretch, because when I pulled back that little clump of dirt, I found a beautiful Victorian-era coin, about 1870s. Now, why am I telling you this story? When I started thinking about my icebreaker speech, I really didn't know which direction to focus on, because I have liked to reinvent myself over the years, depending on my interest. And we all have our interests over the years. Some we keep all our lives. One of mine was history. My family have a family home in the UK, which was built in 1688, and some of it comes from an earlier structure around the 1480s. So it's a pretty old house, but the village that I grew up in, there's a house there, it's the oldest in the village, and they have documents stating that one of the original owners rode off from that house on horseback to fight in the Crusades at 1100, which makes that house about 900 years old. It's still lived in now. So all this history has surrounded me, it's affected me, and it led me to my bachelor's degree in archaeology, and I worked in archaeology for quite a few years in the UK before another interest took hold. And it was during excavations of cemeteries that I realised I was more interested in the skeletons than I was in the surrounding archaeology. So I went back to university to study my master's in osteology and paleopathology. At this time, another change was about to take place and zoom me down a completely unexpected dimensional portal, and her name was Nancy. Now, there's a term in the South which can easily express this, and it's BAM! That's the term that I found myself thinking of about this. The first time I met Nancy was in registration, and she was standing talking to someone else, and she was saying that the picture that she had made her look like a prostitute. And somehow that connected with me. I don't quite know why, but it did. And we would stay behind after our dissection of the Gadaver class and do further research on it. 1 month after I first asked her out, I proposed. And since then, I've always said that we met over the glint of a shiny scalpel and the sweet smell of formaldehyde, which is pretty romantic stuff for an osteologist. And my work in osteology has taken me from historic cemeteries, autopsy work, coroner work, disaster management operations, into war zones and into the heart of humanitarian causes. I've worked in some of the most extreme environments on the planet, from the deserts of Iraq with the US military, exhuming mass graves for prosecution, to the Arctic winters of Alaska, where myself and Nancy both suffered mild frostbite. But during all this time, another interest was still there, and that was writing. I was always writing about these places, the mindset of the people that we met, the environment, the destination, the driving force of their lives, and the journeys. But it wasn't until I met someone in Shelby, a local resident, who asked me to write about her non-profit organisation that I seriously began to look upon writing as a paid opportunity. And so now I'm a full-time writer. But even that is starting to change and evolve into other areas. And it's taking me down avenues that a few years ago I would never have even contemplated. And one of those areas is speaking. I would never have thought of this a year ago. Now, I know I'm not there yet, but what's exciting about this is that I'm actually here. I'm standing here now. I'm doing this to grow. I'm doing this to help me move down these new avenues and to reinvent myself again and have the confidence to do that. So I really want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Good job. Wow.